Jai Hind and welcome to the last lecture of this particular week, Gandhi and Nehru on Peace and Conflict. That is another critical module in our study of modern Indian strategic thought. In the previous session, we examined Vivekanand and Tilak, who represented the early phase of nationalist thinking. Today, we move forward to two figures who not only achieved India's independence but also shaped the very character of modern Indian state, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. These two individuals, mentor and mentee, fellow freedom fighters, yet profoundly different in temperament and worldview, together crafted India's distinctive approach to peace and conflict. Their philosophies continue to influence India's domestic policies, foreign relations, and strategic culture even today, decades after their passing. Let's begin by contextualizing the Gandhian Nehruvian era and understanding why these two figures are so central to Indian strategic thought. Gandhi and Nehru were not just politicians or freedom fighters, they were philosophers and architects of a new nation. They had to answer fundamental questions. What kind of India should emerge after independence? What values should guide the new nation? How should India relate to the rest of the world? Gandhi's contribution was primarily ethical and tactical. He transformed Indian nationalism from an elite movement into a mass struggle through satyagraha, non-violent resistance that was both morally principled and strategically effective. Nehru, on the other hand, was the statesman and diplomat who shaped independent India's foreign policy, articulating principles like non-alignment and peaceful coexistence. Together, they were complementary but not identical. Gandhi was the idealist, the moral voice. Nehru was the pragmatist, the modernizer. Their tensions were creative, enriching Indian strategic thought rather than paralyzing it. Moving forward, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, born in 1869 in Porbandar, Gujarat, and assassinated in 1948, earned the title Mahatma, Great Soul, for the moral leadership. He is globally recognized as the apostle of non-violence, having demonstrated its effectiveness on the unprecedented scale. His influence inspired civil rights movement worldwide, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Nelson Mandela. Gandhi believed that non-violence, ahimsa, was not weakness, but the greatest form of the strength. Violence might achieve tactical victories, but only non-violence could achieve lasting moral transformation. Many misunderstood Gandhi as naive or impractical, but he was profoundly strategic. His methods were carefully calibrated to the specific context of British colonial rule in India. Gandhi's philosophy rested on four interconnected pillars. First is ahimsa, non-violence, not merely avoiding physical violence but encompassing thought, speech, and actions. Gandhi drew this from Indian philosophical tradition but transformed it from an individual spiritual practice into a political methodology. Second is satyagraha, truth force, perhaps in Gandhi's most original contribution, combining satya, truth, and the agraha, holding firmly. It means that force. Uh, it means the truth force. Gandhi believed that truth has inherent power, soul force that can overcome physical force. Third is Sarvodaya, welfare for all. Gandhi's vision included not just independence but creating a just society where the poorest, most marginalized person would be uplifted. And the fourth one is moral transformation. The goal was not to defeat the British but to transform them. This was conflict resolution at the deepest level, addressing not just an immediate dispute but the underlying relationship. So, Satyagraha had four operational components. First is non-cooperation, systematic withdrawal of support from unjust system. The non-cooperation movement, that is from 1920 22, involved boycotting British courts, school goods and titles, economic and administrative warfare without physical violence. Civil disobedience, uh, second is civil disobedience, deliberately violating unjust laws and accepting punishment. The Salt March of 1930 exemplified this. Gandhi marched to the sea to make salt, filling British jails with peaceful protester, and exposing colonial justice. Third element is self-suffering, willingly accepting suffering without retaliation. When oppressors use violence against non-violent protesters, the moral equation shifts, revealing the oppressor as cruel and the protesters as righteous. The fourth is constructive program, building alternative institutions, promoting indigenous industries. Khadi is one of the example of this, establishing a school and working for communal harmony. True Swaraj required building self-reliant, morally grounded communities. Gandhi was not an absolute pacifist in all circumstances. His position on violence was nuanced. Gandhi distinguished between strategic non-violence and absolute non-violence. He famously stated that violence was preferably to cowardice or passive submission to injustice, where choice is between cowardice and violence. I advise violence. He said he could not accept inaction in the face of injustice. Gandhi consistently emphasized the non-violence is the weapon of the strong, not the weak. It requires tremendous courage to face violence without retaliating. The nuance shows that Gandhi understood human nature and strategic constraint. His preference for non-violence was based on conviction that it was the superior method for lasting change. Gandhi developed a comprehensive conflict resolution framework. It involved addressing root causes, focus on structural injustice and exploitation, poverty, inequality, humiliation. You cannot have peace without justice. Second is dialogue, honest and open communication between parties. Gandhi maintained correspondence with the British and attended roundtable conferences, believing dialogue can reveal shared interest. Third is convergence, transform adversaries through moral appeal rather than defeating them through force, recognizing their dignity even while disposing their actions. And fourth is win-win solutions, seek outcome where all parties benefit. This is now called integrative negotiation in modern conflict resolution theory. Gandhi practiced it decade before it became academic doctrine. Gandhi method proved remarkably effective. Mass mobilization without military organization was one of the method. Millions participated in non-cooperation, civil disobedience, and quit India movement. People power on extraordinary scale, remaining largely non-violent. Next is moral pressure on colonial power. Created moral pressure on Britain systematically and internationally. Images of police beating non-violent protesters exposed colonial hypocrisy. And next is demonstrated viability of non-violent resistance. Proved the non-violent resistance could work against a modern state, a revolutionary contribution to and political thought. The last one is global influence. Inspired Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, and the countless peace activists worldwide, internationalizing non-violence as a legitimate political strategy. Now we'll discuss about the Jawaharlal Nehru, born in 1989 to a wealthy Allahabad family, educated at Harrow and Cambridge, served as India's first Prime Minister from 1947 to 1964. 17 crucial years shaping independent India's institution and foreign policies. Foreign policy. Nehru's philosophical approach viewed peace not merely as absence of power but as a psychological and cultural condition, a condition of mind based on cooperation, rationally and mutual respect. Nehru differed fundamentally from Gandhi. While Gandhi was a spiritual leader, suspicious of industrialization, Nehru was a modernist and rationalist who embraced modernity and envisioned a modern nation state with heavy industries and scientific institutions. Yet Nehru carried forward Gandhi's commitment to peace, translating it into foreign policy principles. Nehru's peace philosophy rested on four principles. Scientific temper. Problems should be approached rationally and scientifically. Clear-headed analysis, evidence-based thinking, and reasoned dialogue were essential. Nehru wanted India guided by reasons, not tradition or religion alone. Internationalism, belief in global cooperation and interdependence of nations. India's freedom was linked to decolonization everywhere. India's prosperity to global peace and movement. Anti-colonialism, deep commitment to supporting liberation movement worldwide in Africa, Asia and Latin America, seeing Cold War rivalry as a distraction from ending colonialism. Democratic values. Lasting peace requires democratic governance. Authoritarian regimes might impose temporary orders, but only democracies provide legitimate, sustainable peace. So, Nehru's most important contribution was the doctrine of non-alignment. When India gained independence in 1947, the world has divided into American-led NATO and Soviet-led Warsaw Pact. Nehru refused to choose sides, articulating a third path, maintaining India's independence to make foreign policy decisions based on India's national interest, not superpower dictates. And here the non-alignment emerged as an idea. Non-alignment meant strategic autonomy, judging each issue on its merits, maintaining friendly relations with both blocs when possible, criticizing both when necessary. India could buy Soviet weapons while accepting American food aid, strategic flexibility in a rigid bipolar world. Nehru also saw non-alignment as building solidarity among newly independent nations through the non-aligned movement. The Bandung Conference of 1955 was a milestone in this effort. Nehru articulated his vision of peaceful international relation in the Panchsheel, principles of peaceful coexistence. That policy came in 1954. These five principles were mutual respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, non-interference in internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. These principles challenge the Cold War assumptions that different political systems were in inevitable conflict. Unfortunately, China in 1962 invasions shattered the illusion that Panchsheel alone could guarantee peace. Consistent with his peace philosophy, Nehru positioned India as a mediator. One other example is Korean War, 1950-1953. India chaired the Neutral Nations Representation Commission, helping negotiate armistice and handling prisoners repatriation. Indochina, India served as international control uh, commissions, commissions in Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia during the 1950 to 16. Suez Crisis, India supported Egyptian sovereignty when Britain, France and Israel invaded Egypt. Bridge building, Nehru saw India's role as a facilitating dialogue between communist and Western blocs, reducing tensions and advocating for disarmament. These efforts enhanced India's international prestige and demonstrated non-alignment values. Despite his idealism, Nehru balanced principles with practical national interest. Defense forces maintained and strengthened military despite Gandhi's objections, recognizing that military capability was necessarily in an anarchic international system. One of the examples is Goa liberation, that is in 1962 authorized military actions, where Nehru authorized military actions after unsuccessful diplomatic efforts, a clear departure from pure non-violence justified on anti-colonial grounds. Kashmir, 1947 to 48. Nehru sent troops when Pakistani-backed raiders invaded Kashmir. National interest and territorial integrity trumped absolute non-violence. This pragmatism showed that leading a nation required difficult choices, balancing moral principles with strategic responsibilities. Moving forward, we'll try to compare the Gandhi and the Nehru. What were the key differences? So Gandhi, he was absolute moral principles, that non-negotiable non-violence, individual transformations, that is bottom-up grassroots approach, decentralized villages, Gram Swaraj Federation of self-sufficient village republics. On the other side, Nehru was pragmatic. Nehru believed in pragmatic diplomacy, that is flexibility and compromise, state level actions. Flexibility and compromise. State level action, top down through policy and planning. Nehru also advocated modern industrial nation, heavy industries, scientific institutions, and urban centers. These reflected fundamentally different worldviews. Gandhi's spiritual decentralized traditional Gandhi's spiritual decentralized traditional vision versus Nehru's secular centralized modernist vision. Independent India has attempted to synthesize both with mixed results. Despite differences, Gandhi and Nehru shared fundamental commitments. Both committed to peaceful resolution of conflict. Both were also opposed both also opposed imperial and colonialism globally. Both also believed in dialogue over military confrontation. Gandhi and Nehru also shaped India's identity as peace-loving nation. Together, they created India's self-identity and international image as a nation committed to peace, a consistent element of India's strategic culture. Let's discuss about Gandhi and Satyagraha, which inspired global civil rights movement, uh, apartheid, apartheid struggles, and peace movements worldwide. Within India, Gandhian methods continue to be invoked in social movements. On the other side, Nehruvian non-alignment shaped the non-alignment movement and the principle of strategic autonomy. The recent emphasis on strategic autonomy in Indian foreign policies is essentially contemporary Nehruvian non-alignment. The tension between moral idealism and strategic realism between Gandhi and Nehru continue to characterize India's strategic debate today. Gandhi criticized for impractically against ruthless impracticality against ruthless adversaries. Non-violence worked against the British but might have been ineffective against Nazi Germany or totalitarian regimes without moral scruples. Nehru, on the other side, in the 1962, the war which happened in 1962 China war was his biggest failure. His trust in Panchsheel and neglect of defense preparedness exposed serious vulnerabilities, resulting in humiliating defeat. Both, on the other side, critics questions whether their emphasis on peace adequately prepares India for determined adversaries. Contemporary security challenges, terrorism, nuclear weapons, cyber warfare require ongoing reassessment of their thought. So, what were the strategic lessons for today from Gandhi and Nehru? So, contemporary strategic lessons involve more authority complements hard power. India's soft power enhances its international influence. Peaceful method require preparation. Gandhi's satyagraha was meticulously planned. Nehru's diplomacy required sophisticated understanding. Peace requires strength, not weakness. Third is balance, principle, and pragmatism. Pure idealism can be ineffective. Pure realpolitik can be amoral. The challenge is maintaining moral bearing while making pragmatic choices. Fourth is conflict prevention superior to resolution. Addressing root cause and building relationship prevent conflict from arising. So, Gandhi's moral force and Nehru's diplomatic vision together created India's distinctive approach to peace and conflict. Gandhi provided the moral and ethical foundation, commitment to non-violence, emphasis on truth, recognition of human dignity, the method of satyagraha. This gave India a unique position as a nation that achieved independence through largely peaceful means. Nehru provided the institutional and diplomatic framework, foreign policy principles, international positioning, pragmatic balance between idealism and realism. This enabled India to maintain a strategic autonomy and play a constructive role in international affairs. Together, they created a strategic culture distinctly India, rooted in indigenous tradition yet engaging with modernity, committed to peace yet realistic about security needs. Morally principled yet pragmatic in practices. The philosophies are not static doctrine but living tradition that continues to evolve. As India navigates contemporary challenges, the Gandhian Nehruvian legacy provides both resources and questions. How do we balance moral commitment with a strategic imperative? How do we maintain a strategic autonomy in an increasingly interconnected world? I leave you with these questions, and the next week, coming week, we'll move forward with the more aspects of modern strategic thought. Thank you.